Hi everyone, this is K8s Infra meetings, and we are June 8th. And just a reminder that this meeting is under the code of conduct, so I invite everyone in this call to be great with each other people in these meetings. And with that, I think we can start. I will share my screen. Let me put first the link of the docs in the chat. I think we can start. Let me share my screen quickly. Screen, that's all. So before we start, do we have a new member in these meetings? If anyone new is interested to introduce himself or herself or themselves.
Hi there, I'm Mohammed. I'm new around here, but I met Arnaud and I think it was Rob I keep on. I'm interested in some of the work that's happening in SIG K8s Infra, so here to help out.
Okay, welcome, Ahmed. So just to clarify how I met him, Ahmed is part of the infrastructure working group for K8s project. So he's one of the people doing the similar stuff we're doing for the K8s project. So welcome to these meetings and this group. I hope you will find something to work on. I mean, I don't hope, there are a lot of things to work on. I hope you find joy on working on that. Okay.
Cool.
So next item is the billing report slide. I think I want to go straight to basically the billing report for last month. So we don't, because we've been out for, I think, a month. So it's not really interesting to review the daily spend. Okay, so we again went over a monthly budget for May 2022, which is a reminder we're still spending a lot of money on artifact distribution, specifically container images. But thankfully, James got a PR merge about replacing kgcr.io with vgc-k8s.io, so we might see some progress about cost in the
Sorry, just that should increase cost actually.
Yeah, because we
short term.
Yeah, because we basically all the upstream and downstream distribution will now use that endpoint, which means we need to pay for processing of all the requests going through vgc-k8s.io, and also anyone trying to pull in from that. So until we succeed to implement the IP-based redirection to Amazon, we might see some increase in cost. And if I look at, let's say, if I try to compare between April and May, I don't really see a lot of costs. If I basically ignore everything related to Bosco, and I think we have some extra costs related to Pro, but I think this might be related to all the issue we had during the month. No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if an increase of 40% of the cost for the Pro project is worth investing in this.
Just to, I'm kind of new to looking at the bills. So what do we want to capture in the minutes on this, Arno? The key points.
Nothing. There's nothing special about what I'm saying here. It's just the
Okay.
same thing we've been saying for like a month, for like a year, if I want to be honest. We
that is just slowly increasing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a pattern we basically have between every 3 months we have a release, and every month we have a batch release, which means we increase cost because we publish more artifacts. Not only for the Kubernetes project, but also for all the sub projects, like COPS, like Cluster API.
And from having operated some of this infra like inside of Google previously, we pretty much only have a trend of like more CI usage, more things trying to run more tests. It's very rare that anyone says, "Oh, we should shut down. Like we're not using this."
Yes.
But I think there's an effort to basically remove or fix all the perma failing tests. I checked recently the failure file for that. I see some jobs gone, and I'm happy about that. So I hope we have that effort improving over time. So we basically have just 1 to 3. We have I think job failing less than 90 days.
Yeah, I think that's still not going to make a substantial dent though, because those are just the most egregious jobs that don't even work and immediately fail and produce no results. There's lots of other things that are like cut and paste CI that run more or less the same thing, but slightly different set of tests or something that aren't necessarily being monitored, that will still mostly pass without being touched because like we have some automated maintenance of the CI config.
I think what I'm expecting is we have a better control of the tests we have, so we reduce the bill related to tests, and that will basically help us migrate all the remaining project inside Google infrastructure to the Kubernetes infrastructure. That's my hope. We go under 25K for everything remaining inside Google.
I don't think so.
It's a hope.
So if I could just circle back there to Ben, so in relation to automated maintenance of CI config, are you kind of hinting that we would have duplication of compute on certain CI jobs, or?
I'm saying that even if humans aren't putting effort into keeping, like if I stand up a CI job for like run Kubernetes E2E tests, but with JSON logging enabled, there's a very good chance that will get carried forward to all future releases. So as we get more release branches since that release, we'll have more branches that are running it, and the automation will handle things like making sure it's using a current image and being forked per release and so on. So it will kind of just automatically get carried forward. And because there is a lot of overlap in how CI is run, if we want to break how E2E tests are run, then you need to go patch all the CI running E2E tests without necessarily caring about the individual jobs. So there's a lot of CI like that where just because it isn't perma failing doesn't mean that anyone's using the signal, and I would still expect like usage to only grow.
Right.
There's not much impetus on like considering, gee, we're running a lot of CI. Maybe we need some kind of restrictions or something, but there is lots of reasons to keep running more things. So the trend we've seen is we'll keep using more on, I think, all dimensions of the infrastructure.
So is there an opportunity then to try and kind of audit what is being run and go, okay, look, this is useful signal or not useful signal? But really the issue then is who's going to do that and how will that be done?
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that previously the SIG has talked about doing that sort of thing like after we finish migrating.
Mm.
Depending on how funding goes, I kind of suspect we might have to start having that kind of harder conversation
Yeah.
sooner.
Even if we start that conversation, it's going to be extremely complex to have a kind of framework to optimize that, because every SIG have different needs. If I take, for example, SIG storage, they have a lot of tests very similar, and you have the difference over 1 to 2 tests enabled.
We also have things like the unit test job
Yeah,
that just aren't a SIG. But I also want to step back. I didn't mean to derail this far. I just meant to note that like past experience indicates that resource consumption will go up across the board.
Yeah.
For all of this stuff.
Is it worth noting or calling out, or is it just a can of worms?
I think it's a can of worms we'll need to discuss at some point, but you know, this isn't on the agenda, so just when we're talking about like, oh, the you know, the resources are going up, it's like, yeah, they are, and they will, and
at some point.
Okay, all right.
Okay, next thing. I think Brian, you added the. Do you want to talk about what you added, or we can skip that?
No, I want to talk about it. The first one is create the S3 buckets for the AWS regions. I think the only thing outstanding is for some of the IAM roles, which Jay Pipes is working on. He said he would have a PR ready by the meeting, which I assume is probably just caught up on something else. So I think that's the only thing that's outstanding for us to be able to use the the buckets. So I just added it as a placeholder for Jay because he didn't put anything on the agenda. So I can't really speak to the detail of where he is. He just told me that he's ready soon for submitting the PR for the IAM.
Okay,
roles.
because I have a question about this issue. I don't have the full list. I can guess because I understand Terraform code, but for anyone outside this group, can we get a full list of the bucket create? Because that is okay.
I think let's have a look at it. There is a list, but the list is in the issues. If you say get a full list, yeah, it's up in the issue at the second comment in the issue, third comment.
No, that's the region. What you're saying is the list of region, but
you're looking for the names of the buckets.
Yeah, I want the.
If we can get a list of buckets and get a one-time manual hacky doesn't matter sync of most of the layers, we can continue forward trying to get traffic going that way. Until then, that's pretty much the primary blocker. Everything else is pretty much in place. We have pretty solid testing and so on.
Okay, so I shall take it as an AI that I need a list of the buckets for you to be able to sync them. Which way do you want me to share that?
Can you put that in the issue, if possible?
In this issue, yes, sure.
Yeah.
I'll stick that down for AI for today, and I'll reach out to Jay.
So I have a quick question. So these AWS identities, are they going to be something that you're using in Prow, or is it for humans to do stuff?
I think that's depend of the usage we want to do, because basically, I want to say both for the simple reason that those buckets are gonna be used during the release process, and the release process need human interaction, and because we have a human interaction during the release process is not interesting to our workload identity or federation of identity between GCP and AWS.
Okay,
But
because if you are using AWS, I'm guessing someone went and sorted out AWS organizations and SSO to at least Kubernetes.io G Suite so that the right people can make the right way to wherever they need to go.
Right now, I think it's actually totally outside. It's under the CNCF, and there's like some sub orgs. But as
Okay.
to whether it'll be used in GCP or not, right now we need to any way possible get some buckets live that have most of the current images in it. As long as they have, the bulk of it, we can shift a lot of traffic and circle back to the ongoing sync. For the ongoing sync, I think we're still looking at doing the image promoter, and Adolfo can maybe remind us if that is running in Kubernetes/Prow or if that's actually in Cloud Build.
Which part?
The promoter sync,
the promoter sync is inside Pro.
but it's triggered by Prow. But is it in Prow or is it Prow triggering Cloud Build?
It's
in Prow, right?
Okay.
There's a periodic in Pro that doing that for us.
And it's just in the trusted cluster.
Yeah.
Okay. So then maybe we can't just use the OIDC integration in that cluster.
Yeah, we might. I think we don't. I don't want to do that at the moment because the AWS part is still not clear at this point. So we need to finish set up the security aspect of CNCF organization before we even think about federation of identity between GCS and AWS. I think Mohammed, you opened an issue about this. For this use case, we don't need workload identity short term, but in different, I think for different needs, we need this at some point. But we
Yeah,
never.
so yeah, that's right. So the issue 3807 is for Kubernetes workloads doing things in AWS, which is going to happen at some point. For humans doing things in AWS, I think that was a separate work that somebody else was working on. This is what you need for Prow anyway. So
we also don't necessarily need more humans doing things. Like if we got to the point where we could do a Prow job that does anything, we don't have to start with image promoter. We could start with the sync command you ran, Arno.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've been clear. We don't need workload identity for the moment, basically. But the issue target in more.
Well, but we have been blocked right now on bike shedding how the credentials are managed. If this is a workable approach that dodges the question of storing credentials, then
the issue doesn't target the current problem we're talking about. This issue target other different problems related to usage of AWS accounts by other SIGs.
I'm kind of late here, but I'm thinking you need to create the buckets first, and then some workload somewhere talks to AWS and sends objects to that bucket. Is that correct?
Yeah, that workload is a custom workload built by Jay at the moment, but because the release process involves a manual action, short term and specific for that milestone, we don't need workload identity.
But we could make an
why
automated
manual?
version.
I thought you'd use Terraform to create the buckets, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, but even if you create an identity provider, you want a human to authenticate to a specific account and basically push the object to those buckets.
But we could let automation push the bucket. We could write a Prow job that runs alongside the promoter that just runs the sync with a shell script.
During the release process or
short term.
after the
Exactly.
release?
In the immediate term, just to get the buckets going, and then the next step would be instead using that same authentication mechanism, but from the image promoter.
Okay, so
And maybe keeping around the other sync thing just as a backstop.
okay,
So I have one question. Can you not federate the workload identity inside of a cluster all the way to the AWS identity? Like it, I mean, just using federation of IDC, just as in, I mean, just in the same way that you can take the identity of the service account in GCP, just do the same for AWS?
I mean, that's what we're suggesting.
That's what
Basically,
Mohammed is suggesting.
is suggesting is like having further the identity of AWS inside GCP. So we basically have a service account only attached to a EIM role with the right permission to push to the bucket.
Exactly. That way, there's no handling of tokens, no handling of any credentials whatsoever, right?
The problem with that, I mean, it's not a problem. One of the blocker of that is basically with the configuration on the AWS side is not over. So we don't know what the structure will look like inside CNCF AWS organization. And because of that, I can say, let's go with OIDC right now and try to figure out things, because there's a lot of unknown on the AWS side. So what I'm trying to do here is basically do a manual, basically having a AWS IAM user with access key and secret key, put that inside GCP in Secret Manager and use that for manual open. I mean, at the beginning, and later we can talk about workload identity.
I think those would be reasonably equivalent, and that doing the OIDC sidesteps the thing that we can't seem to decide, which is how would we be comfortable storing the credentials.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm like I said, there's still a lot of things to do on the CNCF side, and we don't have access to that part. So we need to trust hi folks and K11J to work on and finish the work and tell us, oh, we are ready to use workload identity between GCP and AWS.
But last I saw, they got back to us with saying that they're stuck on the key management.
Yeah, but during KubeCon, we talk about this and they have to make progress about this.
This seems like a way that they could make progress.
There was some change at some point during the conversation we had. So that's what I'm saying. Between the moment we talk about it and now, there was some changes and some no problem. Not no problem related to how we want to operate.
Yeah, so I would say sort that out. You need to bootstrap the AWS organization, get all the accounts created and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
once all that's ready and you've already worked out how humans access that account, you then bootstrap it and then you let the issue, well, the stuff on this page then magically works. But if you haven't quite worked out how humans are going to access these accounts, then you're kind of stuck. So, but I'm under the impression that's already been sorted because people are creating stuff in the account.
So, Arno, what's the next sort of best step that you'd like to see happen here? Like, would it be worth updating the issue with a request for information, or?
Oh, basically, from the conversation I had with K11J, there's some kind of there's gonna be some account create on Amazon, so we can use that and move forward with this.
So
the one thing we need right now is basically have a user access to a user, basically have the access here in the secret key for that user, and we basically push blobs on the container image to those production buckets. Because I'm assuming the production bucket are created, we just need to push the blobs, and those buckets I'm not supposed to move. So access, this is all the conversation is about security access right now.
Right.
So we can change that over time.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, we can begin with just a simple authentication using access key and secret key, and later talk about OIDC, integration with GCP, and move forward by saying, okay, we flip for AM user to workload identity. It's not change, nothing changed during the release process or everything we're doing. It's just one step we change the way we authenticate to the bucket. That's what changing. But the bucket will exist, we need to push them. Yeah, Ben, you have a question?
No, Eddie's had his hand up intermittently for a while.
Okay, Eddie, speak.
Oh, No, I was just gonna say anything that we need in terms of account access we have, right? Like the I folks are admins on the account. So we can hop in there, and then I'm pretty sure we can use the AWS Federation stuff to federate from a Google group and then through GCP and then into AWS. So all of that should work pretty simple.
I don't say it's a blocker. It's about progress. It's about we can do everything at once because
Sure.
we are understaffed for all of this. So right now I'm trying to progress so we are not blocked by something not required, because workload identity is not a requirement to make progress about this. Adolfo, you had your question, you had your hand raised. I don't see him.
You're muted.
How about now?
Better.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It turns out if the phone is sideways, the unmute doesn't work. Well, what I was thinking is that, well, handling of the keys should not be taken lightly. And while I understand that this may be just a temporary way of handling the access, we should probably establish some, build process and some documentation and define who has access, and all of that is all work. And while we may YOLO some of that stuff, I mean, wouldn't the human effort be spent better in building the workload identity?
I think we're actually really overthinking this and overestimating the security concern while not making progress on the cost. The way that we've structured the redirector here, the only thing we're serving are content address blobs. So worst case for access to the bucket is some kind of denial of service. And even if that happened, then we just revert to not redirecting AWS users to the bucket until we can fix the bucket. You can't like
I meant for the writing, for the copying.
Yeah, but I'm saying even to copy database, even if you copy garbage, the client's going to reject it because the hash is wrong. Because which hatches it's picking don't come from AWS. So pretty much the worst case is some variation on denial of service to AWS users. If you somehow manage to hijack the bucket contents and either write garbage or delete things, that is also something that we can very easily, very quickly mitigate by just shipping an update to the redirector to like stop redirecting to that bucket.
Okay.
So security is important, and we should try not to let a denial of service happen. But we're not talking about anything worse than that, and we'd have a very clear path to fixing it, even if we totally lost control over a bucket.
Yeah, but I think there is a misunderstanding. We are not overthinking this. It's just a proposal to address a different problem. So
sorry, I don't mean this particular conversation. I mean the fact that we've been talking about this for a while, and we've been stuck at the point of like we have buckets, but we can't write to them because we're not sure about the keys. We should be able to just pick something and move forward and iterate.
Yeah, but the problem is not related to us, it's related to how CNCF handle AWS. And right now it's like there's basically not a good, not good policy.
Yeah, so that's what I want to get the next best step, Arno.
Yep.
Yeah, so the next best step here is a clarification of what the current policy is, make that available to the rest of the community and move forward from there.
Yeah, but for us, we just need the user basically be able to push blobs to duplicates, which means we just need a user with access and creating. And
can we help with that, Rian?
Yes, we can look at it.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll commit to getting that sorted out. In terms of access to people who have that information, we're talking Caleb and Jay. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Caleb is on vacation.
Sounds good.
I can also help add you to that and delegate that.
Okay.
So over the coming days.
Yeah, there's basically, I mean, just to update, Robert. There's like there's a repo where we basically Caleb and Jay been working for. I think it's the organization. The GitHub organization is SIG Infra, and the repo is I don't remember the name. What is it?
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. I can get that from Rihanna and from Hibby and from Caleb and Jay.
Okay.
So we need to get an access authentication.
So I put that in the chat. I mean, that's where all the configuration related security is supposed to happen. So it's using Terraform. So like I say, we are to the point we need to push the blobs to the bucket for production. And we can basically make progress on OCI proxy.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much next step, we want to make sure that we've got like acceptable latency and that sort of thing. But right now it's obviously terrible because we have one test bucket in a single region. And that's not gonna cut it.
So it's access off mechanism and the rest. Yeah. Okay. I got that. So Rihanna, I can chase up on that, and I'll take that.
Okay. So I think we can move forward with the next subject. Rian, the second subject, it's you, right?
Yes, I just added it to the agenda, so it's a discussion here as well. I assume everybody saw it was added by Dims to the mailing list, and he basically just created a mailing list report, say let's drive traffic in 125. So I thought I'd just add that as let's be aware Dims stated that and just have it on the agenda as.
Okay. Any question about this? Basically, it's the Dims sent an email last Sunday about shifting from kgc.io to registry K8s.io. I don't think we need to talk. Yep.
I have one. So just I wonder if someone has identified what would be the best clients to jump in and modify the registry address. I spoke with James and he told me that K8s is one of the prime candidates, but are there any other that you think that would be like a good candidates to update, and then so that we, even if people responsible for the projects are not doing the job right now, we can just jump in and start moving the registry address?
Yeah, we've been strategizing this for a while. K8s, I believe we've already moved, and that's like the top one. But Cube Spray comes to mind as another project in the repo, and I think Cluster API provider AWS. I mean, from our point of view, actually, the main thing that we need to move is whatever we expect might be used on AWS. Everywhere else, this is actually just overhead, but there's a benefit to moving it from a long-term perspective of, we control our destiny around the registry now.
Yep.
Because it's our domain.
So we identify that K8s is the most biggest user for those endpoint, and we make that change. So the future release of K8s will use registry K8s.io, but we don't know other installer or custom registration using AWS. I made a change for one container runtime, Cryo. So next version of Cryo will use registry K8s.io, but it's difficult to identify other tools or installer using those endpoints, especially on AWS. So I think we just need to carry Teams word on basically telling to everyone that, oh, you need to update that endpoint. So I also talked to the marketing team about this. I need to go back on them about specific subject, and my next point talk about this. So
we also have some AIs from Dims's main PR that changed that around making sure that we have some kind of dedicated alerting and making sure that the production one is like fully source controlled.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on that in the next week, but I'm not sure this is directly related to
Just because now that we're announcing it so widely, we want to make sure we're being extra serious about these things.
Yep. Any question about the email?
Just from a note-taking point of view, what do we want to capture here?
Basically, we oh, I'm gonna say that.
Yeah.
The community and the upstream community and the downstream community need to use the new endpoint. That's the TLDR.
Okay.
And when I say downstream, I was like basically anyone building a platform or service or distribution using the vanilla community Kubernetes distribution need to use that endpoint.
Okay. And this is in the context of.
This is in the context of basically that's gonna help us drive the traffic from gate.gci.io to registry.gates.io.
Okay, so yeah, so this is the call from. If I just look above, this is the call. Please drive traffic to registry.gates.io instead of Gates. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So is there an action here in terms of driving that, or is there comms that we need to push out?
Well, there are some communication we need to push. So my next item is related to the first item of combination we need to do.
Okay. And as someone brought up, we probably should follow up with additional sub projects to check and see that they're making the switch.
Yeah. Cluster API start to make the switch recently. Other open source projects also start to make the switch. I will try to go to Continuity meetings to talk about this. They have meetings tomorrow morning, my time zone. I think I need to check the timeline, trying to open a pull request against Continuity repo and try to get that merged for Continuity 1.7.
So to be clear, then are we going to leverage the comms team to push this message out? Yep,
I talked to them, and we need to walk. I need to walk with them about this. So there's going to be a tweet, maybe a blog post, and communication over a specific mailing list.
Just a question about redirecting now and getting that in on 125.
Yeah.
Are we going to try and get backporting for other releases, or are we going to grow into this over the next 3-4 releases and reduce the traffic that way?
I'm not sure about this, but I think doing backport for this is not possible because I think it's not possible to do backport for this because
it's a breaking change.
It's a breaking change for some specific part of the KK repo.
If you're doing things like restricting what images are allowed to be pulled in your environment, or things like firewalling, DNS filtering, whatever, there's lots of ways that advanced end users may have to update their environment to accept this. So it's not something that we can easily convince to cherry pick.
No, I suspected as much. So unfortunately, then the gain is going to be very low in the next release and 2 releases, because looking at even the certifications and the way the images are pulled, there's really older images that's making up part of the cost.
We may have another option. That's the last point here.
We have different options, but I think let's go over the different issues. We can expand that conversation.
Okay, thanks.
Because basically the next item is me, so it's related to the conversation we had earlier. Is basically SIG Controversy has to give an update about registry.gates.io. So I'm not sure I can be there, so I would like Ben or Tim's giving an update next week during the monthly Kubernetes community meeting about this, and trying to basically extend the role around that.
Sure. Can you give me some kind of pointer to
basically it's just
what's happening?
Basically go through Kubernetes community meeting. Next week it's Thursday. I don't remember.
Okay, I'll follow up with you offline to just ask a couple questions about context.
Yeah, so we will talk about that on Slack. We just need to get an update, maybe three slide at most, or just one slide explaining what we're doing and we're doing this, what's the current state, and what are the next steps. And I think for an update, it's a SIG update, basically. So I think that's 10 to 15 minutes of talks. And that's it.
I'll follow up with you and Dims after the call.
Okay.
Did you see the maintainer track CFPs open?
Yeah. And deadline is July, something around July. I basically hope to submit an application for that, and basically the main update about this SIG will be the work we're doing about this. I will try to follow up with, if I can make it to Detroit, I will try to follow up with someone, because I'm not sure I'm going to Detroit. That's a problem.
Okay, I will send you the one that we use, and we kind of just copy paste and change a few words every year. So
okay.
I'm also going to be doing this for SIG testing and then figuring out like who wants to field it. We have a thread. I would be interested in your template, Eddie. It's been a long time.
I'll send it to y'all. It is very short.
Never did that, so that's going to be useful for me.
Yeah, we haven't given a SIG update in a while, so it's time.
Okay, we have 30 minutes left to cover 2 subjects. So my next subject is I will switch one of the 2 monthly meetings we have to make one friendly for people in Europe and some specific zone in Asia, because I had a lot of people reach out to give some help, but they basically can't attend this meeting because it's too late for them. So I will send an email next week with a doodling asking a new time slot for a K8s Infra meeting.
Okay.
I hope to gain more traction and have more people involved or people interested to come on and ask questions they don't want to ask on Slack. Any question about this?
Nope.
Oops. Oh, okay. So next, last item is Ben.
Yeah, so as I previously mentioned to the SIG, Tim Hawken and I reached out to the GCR and Artifact Registry teams and got same team, got a meeting with them to discuss our options around this. So they currently control and provide for us the K8s.gcr.io special GCR domain. One possibility that is definitely open is that we may be able to alter what that points to, get it surfing to the OCI proxy, and then have OCI proxy point at something else. That said, they are not necessarily thrilled about introducing new things for GCR. GCR is supposed to be totally maintenance mode, not doing any more GCR changes. So there's some interest in having this use Artifact Registry, in which case we need to be talking about setting up Artifact Registry registries to, instead of the GCR sub registries we have today that are the real backing registries, promoting things into that, and then making some kind of cutover with the domains. We're talking to them about if they would still be able to give us a like global redirector domain, or we may need to do it ourselves. Independent of what the GCR team is interested in, we may need to be looking at moving to artifact registry anyhow, just because there will be no new features in GCR, and artifact registry may be better for us from a cost perspective because it doesn't expose the GCS bucket like GCR does, and the GCS multi-regional pricing is going to change and hit us in like October and spike our costs quite a bit. Whereas with artifact registry, we'd probably be more likely to not use multi-regional, and it's not exposed anyhow, so they have their own pricing structure. This also
Ben,
means that our naive copy between buckets will eventually have to start reading layers from the registry API instead of GCS if we go that route.
Well, that's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, like, none of this has to happen, but this is
Yeah.
like the gist of the conversation. It was what Tim and I had
Exploratory.
just kind of explore like what they're open to, what they think our options might be. So we might be able to get them to just take the existing domain and get it routing through our own thing in the future and have that forwarding to S3. There's a couple more details on why that may or may not be a thing. And also, if we do that, we lose the fact that the current one handles GeoIP localization for us for all traffic that isn't coming from AWS.
Okay.
/ all the current traffic today. And so we might either have to implement that in OCI proxy, which will be a very different problem for what we're doing today with the known AWS IP addresses.
Yeah.
Or we will need them to give us a new, different auto-regionalizing address. And they're not currently super inclined to do
that.
more things on GCR, but they might be able to implement that on artifact registry. It's not currently something they're doing, but it's like on their radar.
Okay.
So it's a bunch of maybes there. We're still exploring with them, but I think regardless, one of the outcomes is they're strongly nudging us to start taking a look at artifact registry and making the switch, especially if we're asking them for features.
Okay.
Ben, on that note, I have a quick question. One of the things missing from artifact registry, because I kind of looked at the same thing creative a while back, is with GCR, you can kind of get an idea of who's downloading your images, right? By looking at the user logs of the underlying objects, but that doesn't exist today for artifact registry. Does Google have a plan on fixing that?
I don't know. That is a good point and is not something that came up. We were pretty focused on the domain.
Okay.
This is also like something that was booked pretty far in advance, getting some high-level folks involved. I think I know someone on the team that I could ask, but I would guess that pretty much they're just going to point to like whatever's publicly.
Yeah, because that's a one blocker for me right now. Because with GCR, I can kind of see who's downloading my images and what they're doing and where they're from. But with artifact registry, you can't really turn on audit logs for public container registries.
In our case, if we want to track that, we'll be moving to having the redirector in front anyhow. I guess people could technically reach around and do that, but that's also true today. Right now, people could like case.gcr.io is actually 3 registries. So for us as Kubernetes, I think having the little Cloud Run proxy in front gives us an answer to that if we need it.
Yeah, basically we collect that information from the load balancer.
But that sounds like something that I should pass along as like a product feature request.
Yeah, it is. It's a good feature request to have
that,
because there's a gap in the product.
I mean, we have currently used that here. The analysis indicating that we should be looking at moving the AWS traffic is based on the GCS logs. So
Yeah, it's a feature gap, and it would be nice if you could speak to those people and say, hey, we're missing this. Can you
Yeah, I
get that added?
will try to figure out who's the right person for that and pass something along. Otherwise, we got a little bit of an ongoing thread with them. Sorry, I'm glancing over my notes, and they're looking for us at like what project we will have the OCI proxy serving in long term, because of some, I think there's like some legacy stuff involving like a firewall allowance in some cases for K8s GCRDAO. That involves the actual backend. So if we want to route it to something else, then they need to know what project to allow. If this stuff happens. So that's one of the asks from us, besides looking at the artifact registry stuff, is pinning down where are we hosting this backend that they would potentially be routing traffic to. Otherwise, I think there's some investigation on their end as to like what's the best way to do the redirect and is this feasible, and we're waiting for that response. If I find out more, I'll bring it back to this group and we can discuss again in the future. From my point of view, this is not something we can plan to rely on, but it is potentially something we may be able to leverage to move a lot of traffic very soon, if it pans out. But even then, we also may have to meet them in the middle on like artifact registry.
I think there are two problems with artifact registry. The first problem is we lose the GCS bucket. So this is gonna at some point impact what Jay is working on, and we also need to look on how we now do signature, because I'm not sure how. I don't have detail about the implementation, because I think Stephen
that's all
did,
OCI.
Well, Stephen did some investigation about this. There's not real complexity about that, but I remember we had some open question about this. So we might need to look deeper. But I think the first thing is we lose access to GCS bucket, and it's going to be impactful to what's Jay's working.
That should make it some very small change. We already for Jay's thing, we already need to read the image from the registry endpoint to get to identify the layers.
Yeah.
So it should be a really small change to read the layers from the registry endpoint if it's not already doing that. I wouldn't be surprised if it is already doing that. For our manual sync, we would have to hack up a tool instead of just doing object sync.
Okay, yeah, I have a tooling that basically identify the blobs and build the
and copy from an OCI endpoint to a bucket.
Okay. And
that's not a very complicated thing for us to deal with if that comes across, but it is something we'll have to do.
Okay.
That's all a number of ifs, though. So mostly I'm saying we should try to get back to them about where we plan to host this and make sure that we know that we have that pretty locked down ourselves. This is the project we'll host it in, and we should start investigating artifact registry again, so we know if that's something we're okay with.
So what's the best way to track this kind of like this design thinking?
The artifact registry already has a tracking issue.
Okay.
Yep.
Where's that?
I don't have anything off the head, but we have I commented on it recently. We have a tracking issue for artifact registry. We don't have one necessarily for the OCI proxy project. We have one today. I don't know if we're considering that we want to rename because we think the name is not the most correct or anything like that. Or there was one indication at some point that like it might be easier if we just stick it into the current production project for image hosting instead of a separate one.
All right.
The K8s artifacts prod, but I don't think we need any of that. I think we just need to we need a decision from this group on that at some point.
All right. So could you dig out the artifact registry issue?
Yes.
I put that in the chat.
Lovely.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you very
And
much.
I think maybe might need to file an issue to discuss the hosting location for the production thing. At this point, I think we're relatively unlikely to move it because we're already pointing traffic at it ourselves, and it will be a bit of a pain to move that around.
I don't think there's specific value to pick a different project.
We have it in a dedicated prod project today. That's probably fine.
The main thing is just to, if you need something from this group, just to put the ask in some issue somewhere. And then we can tend to it.
I think it's just more of like an open question. Are we ready to commit to that, or do we have any expectation that we want to move it? I can get back to them.
Yeah.
My personal feeling, I don't think we need to jump on artifact registry right now until we don't have a cloud. We need to finish the AWS part first.
Sorry, I don't mean that. I think that can be looked into in parallel by other folks. I mean which GCP project we want to host registry.k8s.io in. That's an open question back to the team in case they are able to do one of the forms of redirect.
When you say registry.k8s.io, do you mean the container registry or basically the endpoint?
The Cloud Run app.
But we have a project for that.
Right.
Just project for that.
Yes, but are we committed to that project?
Yes, because it's already set and defined.
I thought so, but I just wanted to confirm before saying so to the artifact registry team.
Yeah, it's
this will be a part of their it's part of their exploration into like what they might be able to do in terms of doing a redirect from the old address.
Oh, okay. It's inside the dedicated GCP project, and everything is completely dedicated from the network endpoint to the load balancer and the TLS certificate.
Yeah.
So that part is already set up.
So so for me, the action is to confirm that with them, and then the follow up. Otherwise, is just if someone wants to start poking into what it would look like for us to start using artifact registry.
I think for
something we should be considering.
For artifact registry, I remember.
Even without necessarily making active movement to switch, just kind of getting a feel for like if that's something we'd be willing to agree to do, if that's a condition of having the domain shuffling and trying to get a new globalizing endpoint. Because also if it's not, that's fine. They might even do the redirect for us, but then we might need to make OCI proxy handle GeoIP for non-AWS traffic. And that's not something we've currently designed for. It makes sense from a layering problem, but it'll be a new technical hurdle if we need to rely on this domain shift.
Well, we might have different options. We don't necessarily need.
Sorry. About rerouting GeoIP traffic, right? You can kind of cheat and run multiple copies of the Cloud Run service behind a global load balancer. Let the load balancer do that for you.
Well, so then we need to hand off redirects to the GCR thing, but we could do something like identify what region that the Cloud Run app is in, and there are ways that we could approach this. It's just a matter of there's a couple of possible approaches here. We need to be aware of like if any of these are things we're willing to agree to as a part of implementing the registry team helping us swap out the domain so that we're routing traffic through the new thing. Because the existing domain is special and does geo route to different GCR registries.
Okay.
So if we have them switch up that domain, then somewhere something else has to handle that, and that either is us and the proxy, or if we're asking them to do it, they might only want to implement new GeoIP stuff in artifact registry. They separately indicated that from a cost perspective, they are going to expect us to want to shift to artifact registry, not to mention features. So it's worth exploring, I think. Just even if our answer is no, just knowing like how does the project feel about switching to artifact registry in the near term. If we think that's feasible, that might be part of how we solve having this option. If it's not, then either we might need something else. We might need to push back harder, get them to try to get it some other way, or we might just not shift the K8s traffic. It remains to be seen how much we need that.
Would it be
also, it's not clear that they can definitely do that yet. They're still exploring like what are their options for doing that redirect that not just technically feasible, but like within compliance and everything, since that is a production domain.
So, now, are we over
Rob,
time?
Yeah, we are over
Yeah.
time, so we need to stop here. This was a good meeting, a lot of conversation. I put the link of the pull request Stephen was working on about artifact registry. Feel free to explore and have
Yes.
conversation with.
I'll drop it into the meeting notes as well. I didn't capture a lot of that end part of that conversation. But the only quick comment I'd say would be, Ben, would it be possible for us as a group to sit in on to invite that team in to talk to us? Would that be worthwhile? Because I think it might be good to have Mohammed present and have a chat with them.
We can ask, but it took a while
Yeah.
to get. It took actually about a month out to have the
All
last
right.
meeting, and
Okay.
I think we're still kind of at an exploratory stage. I just want to go
Yeah.
ahead and let people know that we've reached out to ask if it's possible and to ask for them to explore this, and this is our sort
Yeah.
of like initial conversation
Yeah.
on it. They haven't committed to any of these
Anything?
options
Yeah.
yet.
Okay. All right. So it's
but
kind of early. It's early days.
But just in having a chat about it, these are kind of the initial concerns raised that like they
Yeah.
might want us to do X, Y, or Z in return to make this work out. So
Okay.
whenever they get back with like this is what they think could work, same thing. I'm just starting an initial conversation to figure
Yeah,
out like
okay.
what is our stance on these topics. If we get to the point where we're talking about actually flipping things, somewhere there'll have to be some more cross communication, but I'm not sure like which of these people will come do this, or like how
Yeah.
formal it will be, or
Okay.
whatever. Right
Yeah.
now it's just like informal conversation
Exploratory
about like
talks.
what Google
Yeah.
might be able to do, and then we discuss so like sure we can bring up
Yeah.
these things
Cool.
with one or two engineers and like management. So I think we kind of pretty well. It's just we came out with a couple of questions that we're not sure, but the biggest thing remains that we still don't know if they even can serve a redirect to us, or like a direct aliasing the name to our traffic or whatever. But besides technical limitations internally, that there's some policy question. It's not very usual to have a Google owned production domain routing to something that isn't actually technically internal Google serving. It's not totally off the table, which is better than I hoped for, but
it's new
it's
for
not
them.
clear yet.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
Okay, I think we can stop here. If you have any question, feel free to ask that on Slack
Cool.
in an issue. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
all right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Arno.
Have a good day, folks.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.